So what are all the Lyft drivers who are eventually going to be replaced by robotaxis, aka autonomous vehicles, supposed to do when that day comes? Well, according to the Lyft executives, become a mechanic for us. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and this story kind of reminds me of a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Tim Burton movie from, I think, 2003. The fact that it is more than 10 years old makes me feel really old, because I remember seeing it at the Esquire IMAX in Sacramento with Mom and Aunt Linda. And it feels like yesterday, and yet Aunt Linda's not with us anymore, and a lot of those kids in that movie have grown up. Tim Burton has continued his descent into more and more mediocrity over the years. But there was a scene near the beginning of the movie where Charlie's dad, who works at the toothpaste factory, gets laid off because when Willy Wonka does his little, golden ticket thing, an increase in chocolate sales means an increase in toothpaste sales, which gives the company enough money to actually replace all the workers with machines that can screw on the toothpaste caps for them automatically, and they don't have to get paid. And that puts the family in a big financial bind, but then at the end of the movie, Charlie's dad ends up fixing the toothpaste machines, and thus he gets a new job at his old company fixing the very machines that replaced him. It's a little bit of serendipity, and we like to think that that's what happens most of the time. But the reality is that is actually not. Sorry, my nose is itching. That's not what always happens. In fact, one of the things about McDonald's toothpaste screwers, a lot of these minimum wage jobs, is that when you replace them with machines, people like to say, oh, well, they can just fix the machines. Well, some of them are low-skilled workers, or it's their first job. Now, if it's their first job, they're probably going to be fine in the long run. But if they're a low-skilled worker and they're still there because they don't know what else they can do, they're not all of a sudden going to have a degree in, electronics or engineering. It's just not going to happen. And yet, well, a Lyft executive suggests this very thing, like, this is why drivers shouldn't be worried, because, hey, if the robo-taxis come, guess what? You can just fix the cars. So, here's what the Business Insider article says. Lyft's head of operations has an interesting new metaphor for the ride-hailing drivers that power the company's service. Speaking at the Smart Cities Conference in New York on Tuesday, Chief Operating Officer John McNeil compared drivers today facing an impending revolution from autonomous technology to the telephone switchboard workers of decades past. In the early 70s, you couldn't make a long-distance call because the local network had separate hardware from the long-distance phone number. So a human being, an operator, had to literally connect those two networks for you to make a long-distance call. There were hundreds of thousands of operators employed around the country helping people make long-distance calls. Eventually, technology advanced that allowed networks to be connected by software, negating the need for someone to physically connect calls. That's when the digital operator took over. Quote, something happened when software would allow long-distance calls, and that was you could dial an 800 number, but you needed somebody on the other end of those calls. So overnight, hundreds of thousands of operators' jobs were replaced, literally with millions of call center jobs. In the same fashion, McNeil said that while the rise of autonomous vehicles could create the need for other types of high-paying jobs, including mechanics. And autonomous cars... Sorry, folks, my nose is just itching so bad today. As autonomous cars come into play, they will be utilized 20 times more than a car is today, meaning they will wear out 20 times faster, meaning there will be 20 times the demand for mechanics, McNeil said. A mechanic job pays quite a bit more than a driving job, unless, sorry, my nose, unless it's on demand, because you know that Lyft is going to design like a mechanic on demand app. So in the future, when that flip happens and the lines cross between human-driven cars and autonomous cars, there will be a boon in other kinds of jobs, namely mechanics that are going to be needed as these physical parts wear out a lot faster. So, yeah, but I also want to point out that pretty much anyone can drive a car. Not everyone can change a tire. Not everyone can fix a water pump. Not everyone can replace an auxiliary cord adapter, even though that's fairly easy to do. Some people just don't have those skills. And in fact, there's a little bit of irony in all these strikes, by the way. Maybe I need to do like a full-length video at some point about it, but it's funny that people in the comment section comment all the time that if you're not skilled enough to do this job, you should move on. You don't even bother with it. Get a better job. While other people brag about how tough this job is, you really have to know what you're doing. And that's why you should get paid more money per mile. It's an interesting conundrum because it's like, you're right. Uber and Lyft is a job that technically anyone can do. Only a few can do it really, really well. And yet, I think we're all in agreement that everyone can at the very least drive. But not everyone can be a mechanic. And that's what Lyft is saying. Like, they're saying the hundreds of thousands of people who have this minimal skill that most people have are just going to become mechanics. That's not how this is going to work. That's not how this is going to work. And keep in mind, this is not just Uber and Lyft. We're talking about like the trucking industry, the grocery delivery business, Postmates, DoorDash. We're talking about millions of people all of a sudden finding themselves out of work. Now, I don't know how many people were phone operators back then, admittingly, but I suspect that it was felt when they all lost their jobs. You know, when elevator operators lost their jobs, I mean, it probably wasn't thousands upon thousands of people, but it was enough to be felt. Heck, when Toys R Us went out of business fairly recently, which still makes me sad, there were enough people laid off that the economy felt it a little bit. And not a lot of people work for Toys R Us. So this is just another flippant attitude. And by the way, it sends very mixed signals. Let's go back up to a picture of this guy just so that we're not looking at blank text. Because Lyft has kind of been walking a tight balancing rope where they're trying to convince drivers, no, you're important to us. You're still going to be on the platform. We still have a place for you. There's going to be like a perfect mesh of autonomous vehicles and self-driving vehicles. Heck, we might keep the drivers around just because some people don't want the quiet. They want someone to talk to. It makes it feel personal. And now, here he is pretty much saying like, yeah, you're all getting fired, but become mechanics for us. And, I know that Lyft and Uber are also making their own mechanics. My nose is itching so bad. I'm going to have to like do like a huge scratch on my next video. This is probably extremely distracting. I'm sorry, but I don't want to lose my train of thought. Where they're going to be opening their own mechanics, so maybe that's where they can start weaving the Uber drivers to start getting trained at the mechanic shops. I mean, I don't know. I think this is a super oversimplification of the problem. By the way, there's also another little bit of irony in this statement, because he's pointing out the main reason why Uber and Lyft will never want to do autonomous vehicles in the long run. Because they wear out 20 times faster and they're going to have to hire all their former drivers to be mechanics. And as he stated, mechanics make significantly more than drivers do. There's so much wrong with this quote. I mean, this is why I wonder, do these executives even think these things out before they say them? Or do they just open their mouth and willingly put their foot into it? I mean, it's crazy. But that's pretty much where we're going to leave that one. I mean, this is, whatever. Yeah, I don't think we're going to all of a sudden have, like, a bunch of mechanics all of a sudden. I mean, if the autonomous cars came through, I could see, like, a bunch of younger generations, like, realizing that that's the trade they want to get into because it's a booming business. But, the current people, that's going to be, like, a tough sell. But what do you folks think? Do you agree, disagree? I would love to know. So, comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly and get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are getting you a little blue these days, check out the GetUpside app below. It's totally free, but you get cash back on every gas purchase. Also, check out the Apptrepreneur Vlogs channel. We're uploading new content every day, including a couple stories that we didn't have time or room for on today's main channel. And check us out on Facebook at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.